So first, let's talk about origami paper. Most people are familiar with the kind of origami paper that you can buy at Michael's or Fred Meyer's or any kind of general store. It's colored on one side and white on the other. It comes in a variety of different sizes of square. You might also find in that same area some double-sided origami paper where the color is on both sides. Or it might be the same color on both sides depending on the model that you're trying to make. You'll also find, if you look around, various kinds of shades and colors and patterns of standard origami paper. This origami paper is generically referred to as kami. Kami paper is that standard origami paper that you probably used when you were in school if you ever did origami. But the only real requirement for origami paper is that it be fairly thin and hold a crease pretty well. That means almost any kind of paper will work except for children's construction paper, which doesn't hold a crease well, and papers like that. So to give you some examples of paper that I like to use or use it for various purposes, sometimes I'll use a variety of paper that I've scavenged from Christmas wrapping and Christmas gifts. So a standard kind of craft paper, kind of shiny red paper I loved to tear apart when I was a kid. Colored, patterned paper, it depends. Pretty much any wrapping paper will work, but the best is that kind of high quality paper that you'll sometimes find, not the stuff that comes 5 rolls for $1 at Fred Meyer typically, but even that works some too. Because in addition to that, you might well want to use simple old copy paper. This is colored copy paper cut into a square. I might or might not have liberated this from my office, don't tell anybody, but this is great for practice paper. It doesn't hold a crease super well, so it's not going to last a long time if you make a model for display, but it's great for practice and very inexpensive. You might also use scrapbook paper. I'm a fan of taking the scrapbook paper. I'm not a fan of scrapbooking, but I like to take the paper and cut it into squares and use it so I can get things like the monkey pattern. Very useful there. For some specialty types of folding, you might use other commonly available papers that you might not have thought of before. One of the more common are memo pad cubes. So you can get these at Office Max or Office Depot, about $5 for a stack of 500, and these are great for doing modular folds. A modular fold is one in which you make many, many different little units and assemble them, so it's great to have a lot of color and variety pre-cut at a good size. Another whole area of origami is called dollar folding or dollar bill folding. And of course you can fold something other than dollar bills, but you might use dollar bills. You might also use paper cut to the same size as a dollar bill so you don't have to practice with real money or get ready to use that $100 bill once you've had practice. You can also use proportionately cut paper so it's the same proportions as a dollar bill but larger, which is great for using those complex folds. Finally, there are other household papers that can be useful too. So this is vellum, which I got at the craft store. Vellum is often used for invitations or the fly leaves on art projects. That's really great because it's got that transparency. The transparency is really useful for some models where you want the light to shine through. So another common paper I like to use for that is good old-fashioned parchment paper, the kind you bake on. Pretty inexpensive considering how much you get. Holds a crease very well. Simply cut a square and you're ready to go. So when you're doing origami, look for paper anywhere that you can. Look for paper that suits your needs. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I find that using all of these different kinds of paper gives me a ready stock. It also has started to make me look around. I look around all the time to see, oh, I wonder if that paper would fold very well. I can make use of junk mail and other paper that comes in, because a lot of times advertisers use really great paper for their advertising. I could care less about the advertising, but if I can fold something nice out of it, why not? So that's a good look at a number of different kinds of paper. And next we're going to look at some origami tools. Let's talk a little bit about origami tools. The only tools you actually need for origami are your hands and a piece of paper. The piece of paper to fold, your hands to do the folding, and your fingernail can be used to smooth and sharpen the creases. However, many origami artists find that it's useful to have a variety of other tools. Traditional origami is made from a square sheet of paper, no cuts, no glues, only folding. But outside of that, use anything at your disposal to make those folds and that folding process better, sharper, more accurate, and smoother. So the first kind of tool you're probably going to want, and which any folder who does much work is going to want, is going to be some kind of a bone folder or folder. Now these come in many different varieties. I'm going to share a few that I have here. These are all used for the same purpose, which is when you have a piece of paper and you've made a fold of some kind, You want to reinforce or smooth that fold using a bone folder. So here's a typical, what a bookbinder would call a bone folder. It's actually made out of Teflon, not bone, but you use the edge of it to lay down that crease that you made, making it crisper, whether you leave it that way or whether you're going to open it up and use that crease for something else. There are many other tools you can use as folders. You can use a credit card or the inside of a milk jug or the side of a pen, or you can find other tools. For instance, this is a clay working tool for children. I found it's great because it has a smoothing side, works very well, doesn't leave a mark. Here's a traditional bone folder. This bone folder is made out of buffalo bone. Again, very smooth, fits in the hand. I like this one because I can keep holding on to it while I'm doing other folds. And I don't have to reach over and grab it again. I also found a wooden knife somewhere when I was traveling. I have no idea what this is for, why it was made, but it's very handy for not only eating peanut butter and things, but for, again, doing that kind of smoothing. Or this tool that's made particularly for origami that I ordered online. It's made out of a bamboo, has a sharp point for poking out creases and pulling out creases, but also multiple smoothing sides. Again, very useful, just don't stab yourself as I sometimes do. Again, you can use any household item that you'd like as well. You don't have to buy a special tool of any kind. It just needs to have a smooth edge, it needs to not leave any mark, and it needs to be fitting in the hand so that you can use it easily and without a lot of muss. The next kind of tool I want to demonstrate is a scoring tool. A scoring tool is used when you need to mark a fold for which you don't have obvious landmarks or points to measure with. For instance, I know when I'm folding a standard piece of paper that I can fold point to point, and that's easy to mark. However, if I need to make something that's not so easy, for instance, from an arbitrary point A to B, then I want a scoring tool to mark that fold. I don't want to write with a pen or pencil and leave a mark like that, and that's what a scoring tool does. So scoring tools come in a variety of shapes and flavors. This is a scoring tool sold by Fiskars. It's what it's made to do. It has a large and a soft stainless steel round end that you use to make your score. You could also use the same children's clay art tool that I showed you earlier that works as a bone folder, also has a point for scoring. And here's one that I made from the back end of a binder clip in an X-Acto blade handle, and you use that for scoring. Anything that has a sharp edge but doesn't leave a mark could be used as a scoring tool, so take your pick. Here's how it works when you're actually trying to use it. If I know I have an arbitrary fold to make, I find that fold, I make the mark. Again, this mark is just a score in the paper, that's why it's called the scoring tool. And then it makes it easy for me to make that fold because it's been scored and I can see it. The final tools you will need are some measuring and cutting tools, because if you want to make squares out of paper of your own, you're often going to need to cut it down to size. There are really 3 things that you need for measuring and 2 things that you want for cutting. First, you're obviously going to want a plain old ruler for measuring those dimensions, width and height of the square. In order to make the square a square, you're going to want a triangle of some kind. You're always going to want to check when you're cutting your own paper, because most paper is not actually as square as you might think, particularly if it's cheaper or used for mailers. And then finally, in addition to measuring, you need to do cutting, and for cutting, you need a cutting ruler. Now, a cutting ruler is just like a regular ruler, but it has this thick side, which is what you use to run your razor, X-Acto knife, razor knife, or your rotary cutter. And that, of course, is the third and final tool that you need for doing your own cutting and measuring, and that is a cutter of some kind. One good way, standard cutter that you can get at any hardware store that has these little snap-off blades so that when they get dull, you don't need a big razor because you're going to dull it up and want to throw it away, and that's more expensive than it needs to be. So this little household one is fine. Run it along that cutting edge. Or, and even better, is a nice rotary cutter. Now, rotary cutters are a bit more expensive, but they make for very nice cuts. This is a Fiskars cutter. It's a larger size, which makes for more accurate cuts, and it's very sharp. I've cut myself on this a number of times, but it works just as you might expect, and you're going to see when I demo this here, running along the edge of that cutting ruler. You don't want to use a regular ruler because the cutter will go up on it, it will cut the ruler, it will cut crooked, it might cut you, not good. But a nice rotary cutter, hold up vertically, makes very nice, very easy cuts. There are 2 fundamental folds in origami, the valley and the mountain fold. All other folds and techniques derive from these 2. These two folds alone create many models that are known as Pure Land origami, origami made only using valley and mountain folds. A valley fold is what most people think of when they fold a piece of paper. You take the paper, you fold it over in some way, and what you have in here is a valley fold because it has that valley. A mountain fold is folded the other direction. So I could take this paper here, and if I fold it back onto itself, that is a mountain fold because it creates that mountain. So you can have a mountain fold and a valley fold. But notice that they're really the same fold, just one turned over. So I could take a piece of paper, and if I wanted to make a valley fold from corner to corner, I would fold it the way you would expect. If I want to make a mountain fold, I can just turn it over, make that fold, and then I've made my mountain fold, or my valley fold. When you work with origami, you're often not going to be talking just about folds, but about creases. So often in working on a piece of origami work, you'll have directions which tell you to fold. In this case, we'll do a standard fold, valley fold, and unfold. And the reason that you do that is to leave that crease to use for something else. So it's important that you make those creases nice and smooth and as even as possible. Now there are a couple of things you can do when folding to help ensure the accuracy of your fold. One of the most important is that you fold away from your body. So if I'm making this valley fold, I don't want to fold this way, fold away from the body. Then align the point and align the edge. And once you've done that, go down and do it from the center. And then you'll have a nice fold. A few things that you don't want to do are, don't fold downward. Don't line up the point and go from left to right or right to left. You want to go from the center. That will give you the most accurate fold. If you're told to make a valley crease, fold and unfold. If you're told to make a mountain crease, do the same thing. In this case, I'm going to use the technique of folding over and turning back so that I have my mountain crease and my valley crease. You're going to use creases a lot in origami. It takes a lot of practice to make them even every time. Let's talk about origami bases. An origami base is a fold from which many other models are derived. So often you will see origami instructions that say something like, start with a kite base and then X, Y, and Z. The kite base is that common starting point. The kite base also happens to be the simplest kind of origami base, so let's take a look at how to make it now. Kite base is made of 3 folds. First, you make a fold from diagonal to diagonal, a valley fold. So we line up our points, go from corner to corner, make a nice crisp fold. Then we unfold that to see that center crease. Now we have 2 more folds to make the kite base. Very simple. Fold one lower side up to that crease. And fold the other lower side up to that crease to make the common kite shape that you've seen before. This is the kite base, the base ready to be used. The second common base is the blintz base. A blintz base is named after a kind of pastry that you may have seen called a blintz, in which the 4 corners are folded into the center. In order to make a blintz base work, we need to create valley folds along each diagonal. Those valley folds across the diagonals are going to give us our reference points for our 4 final folds. So my 2 valley folds. Okay. And open it up, and I have my reference points. Now the blintz base is where you take each corner and move that corner into the center. And you do that with all 4 corners, which is the same shape as the pastry. That's why they call it the blintz. Notice how I keep rotating and folding up, not folding down. I'm moving fairly quickly for the video, but you always want to be careful and take the time to make your folds as accurately as you can. And this is the blintz base.